President Trump revealed in a series of bombshell tweets late Saturday that he planned to secretly meet with Taliban leaders and the president of Afghanistan Sunday at Camp David.
Now that meeting came as a surprise and it was abruptly canceled, and we found out about that through a series of tweets that Trump put out. And I'm gonna go ahead and read those tweets to you and give you some more details about what this meeting was supposed to be about. Trump tweets, unbeknownst to almost everyone, the major Taliban leaders and separately the president of Afghanistan were going to secretly meet with me at Camp David on Saturday. They were coming to the United States tonight. This is a tweet from Saturday night. Unfortunately, in order to build false leverage, they admitted to an attack in Kabul that killed one of our great soldiers and 11 other people. I immediately canceled the meeting and called off peace negotiations. What kind of people would kill so many in order to seemingly strengthen their bargaining position? I don't know, we should take a look at what's happening in Yemen. They didn't, they only made it worse. And then he continues to write, if they cannot agree to a ceasefire during these very important peace talks and would even kill 12 innocent people, then they probably don't have the power to negotiate a meaningful agreement anyway. How many more decades are they willing to fight? Now, as we all know, Donald Trump has wanted to pull out of Afghanistan, and now that the 2020 election is quickly approaching, it's one of the, if he succeeds in it, it's one of the things he wants to point to as a success in his first term. However, as with anything Trump tweets, what's happening behind the scenes is very different from what he's putting out there publicly. So we're gonna get into the details of why these negotiations really fell apart. But first, let me give you the background on how this meeting came about in the first place. At some point during the meeting, the idea was floated to finalize the negotiations in Washington. Trump suggested that he would even invite President Ashraf Ghani of Afghanistan, whose government has not been party to these negotiation talks, and get him to sign on. So I want to stop there for a second. So the United States and the Taliban have been negotiating a peace deal without any type of involvement from the actual government of Afghanistan. And in the meantime, Trump is making concessions on behalf of the Afghan government as part of these negotiations. So as soon as the Afghan government got involved, clearly there were some issues and there were disagreements about the concessions that Trump provided to the Taliban, namely that the Afghan government would release Taliban prisoners, which is not something that Afghanistan agreed to do. Now, in the days that followed, Trump embraced an even more remarkable idea. He would not only bring the Taliban to Washington, but to Camp David, the crown jewel of the American presidency. The leaders of a militant organization, and this is writing from the New York Times, deemed terrorists by the United States, would be hosted in the mountain getaway used for presidents, prime ministers, and kings just 3 days before the anniversary of September 11, 2001 attacks that led to the Afghan war. All right, so let's open this up for discussion. I just wanna say right off the bat, I am not one to say that you should never negotiate with so-called terrorists. We have negotiated with terrorists in the past. We're actually fighting a war for terrorists in Yemen right now. So I'm not in the camp of no, you should not negotiate with the Taliban. However, the way Trump wanted to do this and the way he wanted to bring the Taliban to Camp David days prior to September 11th, I think was not a good idea, to say the least. And the way the negotiations have gone down so far have been pretty bad, especially when he hasn't involved the Afghan government. And based on reporting, Trump wasn't even really involved in the negotiations himself until the very end because he wanted that spectacle.
Well, I mean, that's somewhat common, right? That you do this stuff at the staff level and then you bring the world leaders in at the end to close and seal the deal. The real problem here is, I mean, let's take a step back. The Afghan government controls like 4 streets in Kabul, and that's about it. And if the Americans do in fact leave, which in my view we should, the government is going to likely collapse. It's going to fall to the Taliban. No American president has been willing to take that risk. we thought maybe Trump was so desirous of saying, I brought the troops back, and so uncaring of the fallout that he might, but no, he's not willing to do that either. So apparently we're locked into Afghanistan for 100 years doing nothing of consequence, forestalling an inevitable solution or an inevitable consequence of our eventually leaving, if we ever do.
But the Taliban and the Afghan government, despite how marginalized the Afghan government is, both want the United States troops to leave their nation. So if Trump and his team, if you're saying that it's more going to be on the lower levels that they're having these conversations, if they had a shred of competency, they would know that that is a common goal to bring those two groups together to have a conversation if they actually wanted peace. The reality is that Trump acts impulsively. He sort of wants peace and has these anti-interventionist inclinations, but when it comes down to it, it's the establishment of the Republican Party that will always put a wall up in front of him, and he wants to be liked by his covert of people around him and by his supporters, so much so that that's what's going to win out at the end of the day. And he's so easily swayed by who's the last person in the room. So while that might be his initial instinct to be anti-interventionist, it's never going to get past the first step. And this is just another example of it. And it's frustrating because he could be the Trojan horse for us people who love peace, who want us to get out of these forever wars and actually accomplish this goal, because only a Republican can, for the Republicans to accept it, and Democrats and liberals are principled enough to say, okay, we'll be fine with it even if Trump does it.
Yeah, I mean, it was the idea that if anyone could get away with this, it could be Trump.
Right.
And no, he's not willing to do it. And frankly, the Afghan government and the Taliban's concerns and wishes mean absolutely nothing to U.S. Foreign policy in any fashion.
Which is why we invaded there.
Exactly.
And we've stayed there for decades.
This is about an American president trying to save face. And unfortunately, he's going to continue to have Americans there who are still in harm's way, as those tweets show.
So I want to get to the war hawks who surround him and his administration in just a second. But I do also want to give you some information about the soldier who died in this Taliban attack. As I mentioned earlier, 12 innocent people were killed, including a soldier who, Army Sergeant First Class Ellis Angel Barreto Ortiz. Now, he was cited, his death was cited as the reason for why this meeting didn't happen and why the negotiations fell apart. But in reality, these Taliban attacks have never subsided. Like, they've continued. More American military have died as a result of these attacks. What really happened is there were so many disagreements and there was so much chaos in the middle of these negotiations that it just kind of fell apart. And my interpretation of this is that the administration is now pointing to this particular Taliban attack for their reason to kind of leave the negotiation behind at the moment.
Definitely.
They claim that they want to continue negotiating, but we'll see. Now, I want to go to Mike Pompeo, because Pompeo's rhetoric here perfectly demonstrates and illustrates what you guys are talking about, the kind of hawkishness that you can expect from someone like Pompeo, and to an even greater degree, John Bolton. Take a look.
We're not going to withdraw our forces without making sure we achieve President Trump's twin objectives. Any reduction in our forces will be based on actual conditions, not commitments, but actual conditions on the ground.
Well, given that conditions appear to be worsening,
Chuck, that's not true.
You don't believe? Okay.
I don't believe that's true. If you're the Taliban, conditions have been worsening and they're about to get worse.
What is, okay, you say about to get worse, so does this mean we are going to increase the military activity against the Taliban?
We're going to make sure that everyone in the region understands that America will always protect its national security interests. I'll leave to the Department of Defense to talk about specifics, but no one should underestimate President Trump's commitment to achieving those goals.
So it's just clear who surrounds Donald Trump. So you guys are right in that he has these inclinations, he has this feeling that, hey, voters are sick of these forever wars, they want to get out. But when you surround yourself with the likes of John Bolton, who's even more hawkish than Pompeo is, in this administration specifically, well, you're gonna have some issues. And I wanted to give you some details about what they were negotiating. What were the terms of the deal as they stood? The deal called for a gradual withdrawal of the remaining 14,000 American troops over 16 months, with about 5,000 of them leaving within 135 days. In return, the Taliban would provide counterterrorism assurances to ease American fears of a repeat September 11th from Afghan soil. But I mean, even in that case, do you trust the Taliban to avoid another terrorist attack? I mean, I wouldn't trust them. I would take the proper national security measures to make sure that an attack like that doesn't happen in the future. But
I mean, that is the doom loop of this militarized policy that we've continued to see. We can't leave because what would happen if we leave?
Well, I want to leave. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I want to leave, but like this whole notion that like they're going to promise that they're not going to do any, they're not going to be naughty anymore. Of course, they're going to. Throughout these negotiations, they've continued with their attacks.
But I mean, nothing in that says we're not going to take over the government and rule the country. I mean, they could not harbor a terrorist and still subjugate women and do everything that the Taliban was doing in controlling Afghanistan, which was not great situation for the Afghan people.
It wasn't. I mean, but
and frankly, though, that's their business. I mean, we have invaded this.
I agree.
Yeah, like I'm obviously sympathetic to the plight of women and all of these individuals who have to suffer under these authoritarian governments, these religious governments that are being run by maniacs. I mean, but we fund one in Saudi Arabia. So the fact that we're showing this false concern about, what happens if the Taliban actually gains official control as opposed to just 90% control of Afghanistan is absurd. So we're doing all of this in bad faith, and that's what's frustrating about this conversation.
Yeah, I want to leave you with one final bit of information on this. Graphic 11, the senior Taliban leader on Sunday said that Trump was fooling himself to think that he could bring the Taliban and President Ashraf Ghani together at Camp David because we do not recognize the stooge government in Kabul. So there were deep disagreements during these negotiations. The way that the Trump administration is trying to spin it as if everything was hunky-dory, they had agreed on everything was fine. It was just that one final terrorist attack that they did that changed everything is just a lie. They hadn't really come to an agreement. There were still deep differences, and that doesn't mean that you should avoid pulling out of Afghanistan, but you should know what the facts are and how the negotiations really went.
The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.